let's jump in and hopefully you guys can see my screen. So we're all here to have a little look at getting started with AfterShoot, which of course now won't work. Okay, so I'm Julie Powell. I'm a photographer, writer, and educator focusing on creative portraits, still life, macro, and food photography. And I'm based in Melbourne, Australia. And I'm here with my co host, Bob Coates. Tell us a little
And
bit about yourself, Bob.
all right, yeah, all right, no accents. I'm based in Sedona, Arizona. I'm a commercial photographer, so I do. You'll see, some of my commercial work. I do a little bit of professional portrait work for music artists. I'm a lens-based artist, so all of my source material comes through a camera lens. So I'm represented in a gallery here at the Gallery of Modern Masters in Sedona. And then, I'm an author and obviously on Photo Focus, and I'm a photo educator and been a little grounded lately. Everything's been online versus getting out there and, teaching live, but looking forward to starting that back up in April.
Cool. Okay, so why use AfterShoot? And it's a really good question. Bob and I and a lot of other people have been getting it into AfterShoot lately, and it's been a real game changer. As photographers and creatives, you should be able to spend time with things that are most important to you, and that's usually getting with your clients, not spending hours and hours on the computer going through having to cull your images. So, and culling is often time taking and the most non creative part of the photography workflow. Hence, why the people at AfterShoot built it to help give us precious hours back in our life.
So weirdly enough, a lot of people, when you say the word culling, they don't necessarily know what, we use the words in, there might be some non-pro photographers who don't necessarily cull, but they pick their best images. So it's that time spent through looking at this one, looking at that one, comparing the two and saying, oh, is this smile better than that smile? Is this person blurry? That kind of thing. So AfterShoot is built to make that stuff a whole lot easier using AI.
And it's really cool. So, will AfterShoot reject your important images? And this is a really good question that I asked myself, and I hear a few other people asking as well. No, it won't. If you load all your images up in your file or in your folder, and Bob and I are going to go through and show you how to do that in a minute, um, it will still keep all of your images. It won't reject any of them. Even the really bad ones, the misfires, the blurred shots, they're still in the folder and you can still use them if you want to. But it will tell you what it thinks are the best shots, and we'll get into that in a tick. So whenever AfterShoot detects more than one similar image, it'll always pick the best ones from that, ensuring that you never miss out on an image. So I know when I'm in the studio and perhaps I'm shooting kids and I have to take lots of photos because the kids are moving around and you've got to get all the kids to look at the camera and all the rest of it. So you may actually have quite a few images that are very, very similar. So AfterShoot will actually pick out the one or two that are the best out of that group of shots, and you'll see what we mean. So what platforms, software and image formats does AfterShoot support? Well, you can use it on Windows or Mac. You can use it with, I've used it with Capture One and Lightroom Classic. What have you been using it with, Bob?
It has some very specific spots to where it says I'm going to export to here, like Lightroom and things like that. I export it to specific folders because I'm a Bridge, Adobe Camera Raw, Photoshop user. So
Yep.
what I do is I say I want to go to a folder here, and I'm even going to name this folder. I can make a folder wherever I want it to be. I usually put it inside the master folder until I'm like, oh, this thing worked pretty good, and then I can toss out some images if I want. So so you can move them to anywhere you want to anything, any file folder, anywhere you want to go, so long as you can navigate to it.
Yeah. So, as I said, AfterShoot's compatible with both Windows and Mac, and apparently including the new M1 chip. I'm assuming Mac users know what that's all about, because I don't. I'm a Windows
It's the
user.
new latest and greatest, don't you know?
um, and as we said before, so it has a direct export to Lightroom, Lightroom Classic, Capture One, and you can put it into folders and things like that as well. So, and as far as large image formats go, they support pretty much all the leading RAW formats. So, if you shoot in RAW, you don't have to worry about that. You can bring all your RAW files straight in, and of course JPEGs, PNGs as well. So,
I
it's if you're still shooting in JPEG, you can bring those in, or if you're shooting in RAW, then it'll bring all those in as well. Not a problem.
Now I did note because I've gone back into some of my past work and some of my working files that are TIFFs, and it doesn't show you those pictures.
Okay.
It'll allow you to, it's a placeholder there, and if you click on it, it will open in the program that it's set up for. But TIFFs are not part of it. But when we're culling, we're usually starting from RAW or JPEG.
True. Yeah, I don't use TIFF myself, so I guess I haven't found that problem. So good to know. Okay. So how much does AfterShoot cost? Let's just get to the meat of it before we move on to the fun stuff.
It's
So
free.
it's
Oh, sorry.
free for the basic essentials package. So, and that gives you manual culling. So you can go through and you can quickly and easily go through and you can cull it that way. So there's AI filters for detecting closed eyes and bird photos. Wow,
No,
blurred photos.
the
In my case,
bird photos will be later. I'm using it for some of those.
and in my case, it will be blurred bird photos. Um, so to views key faces and the images and things like that. There is the Pro version, which gives you the fully automatic AI culling, which is what we're going to have a little bit of a look through. It also gives you the quick filters for selections, sneak previews, which are really cool, and more. It gives you the ability to view duplicates and key faces and one-click import into Lightroom, Capture One, etc. So both of them, whether it's the free one or the pro one, you still get the awesome support from the guys at AfterShoot, and of course you still get all the regular updates as well. We also have a promo code for you guys who are in the webinar, and that's Photo Focus 10. So if you use that, it'll give you a discount on the pro version of AfterShoot, and we'll put that code and the link in the
It's
chat.
already our lovely
Already
Emily
up.
has already
See,
popped it into the chat.
the magical unicorns are at work. So yeah, so there's a code there for you guys. So that's pretty awesome. So let's I'll just get out of that.
It's a cool logo
And
too. I like that.
yeah, it is a cool logo. I actually love all the little things that pop up, like, the magical unicorns and all the rest of it. So, yeah, it gives a nice human element to it and a little bit of fun. So, yeah. Okay, so, whoops. Need to bring my screen back up so I can see what I'm doing. So, what have we got in the Q&A? So, your export back to... Okay, so a couple of those questions I'm not quite sure how to even answer. So let's jump in. I'm just going to share my screen again, and we'll go into AfterShoot so that you guys can have a little look. And this is what AfterShoot looks like. So I have any of the images that I've brought into albums will be there. And not just people. Interestingly enough, I even brought in a cake shoot. Of course, now it's not. Well, that's interesting. I did try a cake shoot, but the photos aren't there.
Chocolate cake.
Chocolate cake. Yeah. So I recently did a um, maternity shoot for the lovely Jess, and loaded them all up. And as you can see from the when I scroll through the images here, they do have different colors and different star ratings. And that's where the culling process, so I've already culled through this image. So when I go through the culling process, it has come up and it has shown me the best images in that selection, which is given a green and a 5-star rating. It has also told me what all the blurred images are. So these are ones where the lights didn't quite fire properly, or they're too dark, or the image was a bit blurred, or there's closed eyes. So there's a few there that have got blinks and things like that. So that's really awesome. When you are going through images and you have some which are very similar, so hopefully you can see here this image has got number 3. So if I double click on that, it will show me, so this is the green one, which it says is the best one out of the bunch. And then I can have a look at the other ones which they have gone. Now these are quite similar, but I think it's actually pretty much spot on the mark that this one's just nice. The eyes are in focus, it's nicely engaged and all the rest of it. There was another shot here where the eyes are closed, and it has put that as a number 1. Not to say that you don't necessarily want shots with the eyes closed. Here's another one here where Jess is looking down and her eyes are closed, but the hand placement is actually better on this one than on this one. So it does look for all sorts of things like that. And loading the images up and running through a cull is pretty easy. Now you had one, Bob, I believe you've got set up ready to go.
Sure. Let
I'm just
me
going to stop sharing and you can jump in and you can go through and load that up.
I will pop in desktop 2, a little bit of share. Okay, so yes, I'm going to talk about a couple of them first, just to see what goes on. And now, this is built originally totally for weddings and people and making things easier that way. And I decided to push it in another direction and to see how it would do with animals and birds and such. So I was took one of my shoots from down in the Cibola National Wildlife Reserve in southern southwest Arizona, and there was 1,195 images that were popped into there. It selected and said, "Hey, you know what? 306 of those are pretty darn cool." And then the sneak peeks, this is something you can program in and do, and then you're blurred. So if we look at the selects actually were pretty good. And one of the things you can do is you can double click and you can really screen through the images very quickly. So if you're not happy with it, you can change that from 5 to a 4 to a 3. And if you notice, like Julie said, when we've got the different numbers, so you've got the 5 is the 5-star is the one that says, "Hey, this is like our winner here." And then underneath there's the 3s, and then the when you get down to the ones, then it's saying, "Hey, this thing, shouldn't be living here at all." So if we want to get back to it, we can just the navigation on this is really slick and easy. So it did a pretty nice job of selecting the winners as far as I was concerned when it went through. When the sneak peeks are something, it kind of says, "Hey, these are images that are going to do well in social media." So, for example, if you come back from a shoot and you come back from a wedding or come back from a shoot in the wild, It's going to say, hey, you know what? These will probably be your best picks. And the weird part is it did a pretty nice job of that. So again, I'll just kind of, these are just the sneak peeks. Now, the sneak peeks are also a subset of your major selects. So it's your they're not added to each other or they're not separate. They're the same folder. It's just a little subset there. So pretty quick and easy. These are that one. Maybe they made a mistake on that. Oh, and when I look over here, it's only a 3. Okay, so these are 4 stars. Kind of working your way through. So anyhow, that just gives you a little taste of what goes on. And then of course it's got the blurs. And boy, every single one of these in here is blurred. Now, if you want something that's maybe a little more artsy fartsy and you want it to be blurred, then you would know to go right to this folder straight away. So it's, it's got its good points even then when it's pulling your bad images or your quote unquote bad images out. So, as you look, so these are, and if you notice that the blurs are all in red. Now, one of the things you can do is you can change all the color things. You can change the stars. If you already have a system working in your, say, in Lightroom or whatever, it's basically going to take this information over, and if you allow it to, it'll overwrite. So if you have a certain um, system already, you can go into your preferences, and through your preferences, you can say, okay, for my colors, this is what I want my colors to be. This is how I want my stars to work. This is how I want my grid view to look. We've got, these are all shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts, so that you can really cruise through your files and your images pretty darn quick. There's your settings for import, so you can set it up so if it always goes to Lightroom, you can have it set up and give it the address for that. And set up the path to Lightroom Classic or CC Capture One Pro. Oh, and look at this path to AfterShoot's catch files. It tells you where that's going to be hanging out. So these are all easy things to put back to where you wanted to go, and then just clicking on the X takes you back to your system. I'm going to go back to my home page, and what I'm going to do is this right here is a huge number of files, and I'm just going to double tap to open. This is how we start looking at the images. So these are all my raw files from a shoot over at a place called the Bubbling Ponds here in Sedona. And what I'm going to do is show you how we start culling. So in this particular one, oh, this isn't the huge one, but this is 163 images are in here. Right here is a little button down in the corner, and it says start culling. And to me, it was like, when I first was looking at it, I was like, start culling? Well, I want to tell it what to do. It should say, start telling me what to do, and then you can go. So that for me, that was like a weird thing, because it took me a while. I was like, well, where do I remember because I used it before. I told it what I wanted it to do. So basically, you can start to tell the program exactly what you want it to do. So you have a choice, and what it does is it gives you your description of what each one does. So culling blurred photos, you have a choice of lenient, moderate, or strict. And each one of these gives you an idea. So in strict, it's going to, if it's even a little bit blurry, it's going to not, let it be in there. If it's lenient, if you're like, oh, I don't care if there's a little movement. On a lot of these, I've found that moderate seems to work well for most of the things I've been doing. I'm still studying how, you think, Julie?
Yeah. I've found for most of it, it worked pretty good on moderate.
Yeah, now there's some where I want to push, if I'm really trying to see those blurry photos and I want to put those into the same folder, I can push it over to strict and so you still have the opportunity. It will remember these settings between, so that you can decide how you want it to go. And it does the same thing with grouping duplicates. You can, just have it, where if it just changes a tiny little bit, it's not going to pile it up. But if you go to moderate, it's going to start to group them together a little bit more. You go to strict, you see we're down to 2 sets, and there it's like it's putting all those into one set because it feels that they're a similar image.
And
Um,
I think if you shoot something like in a burst too, so if you did, a whole heap of images in 10 seconds or 20 seconds or something, and there's not many differences, it's going to put most of those together too.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. So then the other part was, how many duplicates are going to be in each set, and you can, tile that down just a little bit. And again, so making these decisions helps out. And then the other really nice part is this volume of sneak previews. So you have the choice of going from 5 to 20%. And if you've got a ton of images, you want to set this to like 5% or to 20%, or so you can decide a little bit to see how it's going to pop out. And this right here says if you've already been through and you already did some work, like say in Lightroom, and then you pull this folder into AfterShoot, you have a check mark here that says overwrite the existing color stars. So if you did some star work before and kind of start things, this is going to, if you check this box, then it's going to start you fresh and use just these here. So once you've got these set up the way you want it to go,
And don't
start,
forget the advanced settings.
huh?
The
Oh,
advanced settings.
oh, I'm
So
good.
we can run into that in a minute.
Okay, so this is a 100 165 image. Oh, and the other thing was these guys are constantly updating this software. This is relatively new, so they're really working it up and making it go. They sent an update the other day, and um, it was amazing how quick all this culling happened when I did like a folder of 1,000 plus images. And there we are. That 165 images took 35 seconds. And it gave me 58. So it basically gave me less than half, gave me 5 sneak peeks. So let's go just take a quick peek. So in the selected, those are there. Pretty good selects. I'm happy with that. Happy with that. These guys live together. This has got an extra one behind it. So if you wanted to see what is behind it, then it pops up over on this side of the screen. And then I can decide to, if I want to make all 163 images go and not lose anything or not take anything that it said it didn't like, I can export all of those, or I can just go ahead and say, you know what, I want to export these 63 photos and not worry about the blurred anymore. But I would check them first before I went through. And then of course you can change them all. So that's kind of the workflow. I'm still learning to play with it and deciding, do I want it to be lenient? Do I want it to be big? And that kind of stuff. So let's see what it said for sneak peeks. Okay. That's a pretty cool little sneak peek. That's not too bad. That's terrible. but I can say, but I can say no. I don't have to take its decisions, but it can help. And you notice that this one under here says it has 10 duplicates, and then you can see we had all sorts of different guys that were in there as it was going back and forth. And I can quickly scroll through and decide which one. I kind of like, where'd that one go forward? That one. Nope, that one right there. No. Okay. So anyway, you can get through and you can play with them. So it does work with wildlife as well as some others.
Yeah.
Back to home. Go ahead. You want to go back? You want to go hit something?
Yeah, sure. I'll hang on. I'll stop. Try and share my screen again. So, when we're actually bringing images in, this is something else which is really, really quick. It's amazing how quick it is. So, I'm back on the home screen here, and I just want to bring in an album. So you just click on Add Folder. I'm just going to go to something or other here. Where have we got here?
And I noticed in the chat that somebody said they did 4,500 images in 35 minutes.
Isn't that amazing? I think I know who that was. So this is a cookie class that I went to just to prove that it's not just for people. So as you can see, it brings in images pretty quick. There are people in here. And it loads them up pretty much straight away. You can then go through, like Bob said before, and start your culling. And it literally is just once it's brought it in, and like I said, only took a couple of seconds, click on that. So you've got your different settings that you can come through. So you can set your blurred photos, your duplicates, how many duplicates in a set, your sneak peeks. But there's also an advanced setting here that you can click on as well. And you can choose to have closed eye detection on or off, blur detection on or off, and your duplicate detection on or off as well. So, and it doesn't take much, and it's saying having the same star. So if you click on the star ratings here, you can come through and, because I told it that I wanted the blurred and closed eyes to just have 1 star and be red. That's just for my own purposes. But everything else I can choose, if I go into the star ratings, on any particular folder, if I want to have them a specific color, I can. I can also change the color and the rating for the sneak peeks, the duplicates, and all the rest of it. So I'm just going to hit next, and I'm going to go and start the culling. Now, it won't take long because there's only 174 images in here, but what's really cool is you can come in and you can let's check on the right one. You can cull different folders at the same time. So I can set up another folder and have it culling. So this particular image is actually, or this folder I should say, has already been through and had a cull, but I might want to recull it because I want to change my settings. So if I come in here and yes, I want to recull it and start again, I want to be a little stricter on my blurring. I also want to be more strict on my duplicates. And I want to have 10% sneak peeks as opposed to 5%. And then I can just hit start culling again, and it will queue them up. It's got here album queued, so it will start culling once it has finished culling the other one. This one, it says culling in progress. That's the cookie one, but that will no doubt finish off in a minute. With the images that we go through, I'm just going to double click and open this one because I just want to talk about those sneak peeks for a minute. What it does with the sneak peeks is it runs some algorithms that they've got built into it based on various different things in social media like Instagram and Facebook and things like that, on what it thinks will do really well. And I was really interested when I was doing this shoot that I had, and I'm just going to try and see if I can find it. So I had some images here of a family shoot, and some of them that weren't necessarily the best photo in the group, but they were actually super cute, and people would react really well with on social media, and that's where it was giving the sneak peek. So these ones, even though I mean, it's a super cute photo, it's probably not the best photo of the bunch per se, but there's, I mean, they're all sort of giggling, and the little girls, you know, got this cute little face on it. And it actually, when I did put it up on social media, it actually did rate quite well, as opposed to some of the perfect photos that people haven't got the interaction with. This is another one that was a sneak peek, and I put it up, and it's just this cute shot of a kid. It's probably not wall worthy, but because it was a cute shot, and it was something a little bit different, you know, the kids are going, here dad, catch, and all the rest of it. So it was picking up what would be sort of like a human element that would work really, really well on sneak peeks when it come to the photos, as opposed to everything else. I mean, it still comes through and picks the groupings of what would be similar. and I found it pretty much straight, was spot on with most of the images in a group. So this was a little sort of thing we did where the girl was giving mum a present, and it picked this one as the nicest one, and I think it was probably slightly more engaging just because of the composition for it. But I mean, some of the other shots, this one, the little girl was not holding it very well. She sort of let go of it from now. And here she was about to let go. So it's quite interesting what it goes through and decides with the AI that's in the program of what works and what doesn't. And I actually found when I put some of them up, it worked really, really well.
So Andy was asking on the duplicate detection, is it identical or do you consider it close?
Most shots are pretty much close. If I go back, so if I go back, let me just find one that had, where
Okay,
was
while
it?
you're looking at that, Andy also asked, he bought AfterShoot last week and says, can he run it on his laptop and the desktop? Andy, I'm going to tell you that's above my pay grade. I'm not absolutely certain. I'm probably pretty sure you can, but my suggestion would be, and for anybody who has questions that are above our pay grade, hello at aftershoot.com. These guys are really, you
Really
know,
good.
they're really good at getting back to you. So I would direct that question there.
So yeah, so this is a folder that had 5 shots in it. So they're not identical shots, but you can see when I'm running through it. So for instance, with this one, nobody's looking at the camera. This one has got closed eyes. So they were all shot at the same time. And if anybody's ever worked with kids, you know how hard it is to get everybody to look at the camera at once. But it went through and it picked the one shot where everybody was looking at the camera, smiling and engaged. So they're not identical images. It also gives you a little bit of a preview up here of what's in focus and what's not. So most of them are very similar, but they're not necessarily identical. If I was to jump back into one of the other ones that's got, so here's another one again. Even though cute face on the kid here, nobody else is really, they're interacting with each other, not with me or the camera. This one, see, this is where I probably don't agree. It's given this one a 5, but I think that this is actually a better image. And I can just hit S and I can swap that. So that's now a 5 and it's given this one a 3. So it's not 100% perfect 100% of the time, but it gives you the option to easily go in and swap stuff out. So if you don't agree with the choice, then you can easily go in and swap out. But
So,
if
Julie,
you
that would
want,
bring to the question, how do you train the unicorns with the star ratings? Is that
um,
part of that where that's going to, if you go ahead and set it up so that they can run you can show the images to what your picks are, then AfterShoot will start to look again. This might be a little bit past my pay grade. Um,
so the more you use it, the more it gets to learn, I guess, what it is that you're looking for in your program. But you can also go back in and you can retrain or you can recull. So I've made changes here with mine. So I'm going to tell it to save the changes that I made. Um, but yeah, so if you were to go in and do a recull, you could set up your star ratings and all the rest of it. But the more often you use it, the better I'm finding that it's picking up stuff that I'm looking for, regardless of what it is that it seems to be that I'm shooting. Um, but I guess it's a matter of setting up your stars to begin with, and working from there. So these two culls are both finished. This one took 5 minutes and 11 seconds for 174 photos, so that's pretty quick. Now, interestingly, it has picked, um, images that were, I would have called them stock images and given them a 1, so I don't necessarily agree with that. But if I come back in, I might find that there were other images that were similar that were better. Um, so many different ones that are not. So this one, there was a couple of other ones. That one's a little on the blurry side, and this one's more centered. So, I mean, it did a fairly good job in picking that one up, and there's no real people in that shot. So, it's not just for people, but it also works for chickens. Uh, so, yeah, I mean, it come through. I mean, this was, again, we had a group shot. And it picked that one because we're actually all smiling. So, yeah,
I
lots
like
of,
how I like how when you've got a group like that, you can get an individual quick pick look at each face.
yeah,
Just by
yeah,
that's just a really nice little feature right there to go, okay, yeah, everybody's looking cool.
yeah. So this one, not everyone's looking at the camera. There's a couple of blinks and some closed eyes. So that's a pretty good pick to give that one a 1. This one's not too bad, but it turned around and basically said that pretty much everybody is smiling in the photo. So that's a really good group photo to pick. So when it come to the birds, now I'm not a bird shooter, caveat here. I am not a bird shooter, but it has come through and it did pick. So there was 329 images that are put in, and there was 148 blurred shots. I'm surprised it's not higher than that, to be honest, with my shooting. When they're standing still, I can capture them, but when they're not, I'm not so great. Um, I'm just trying to get some birds in flight. I'm sure there's got to be some in here somewhere. Have you got anything else you wanted to add in there, Bob, just while I'm looking for some?
Yeah, are you a Lightroom user?
Yeah.
Okay, so if somebody wanted to pull images that they've maybe already worked on in their Lightroom catalog, that can they cull from there to, even though they've already been through there?
I believe I haven't done it myself, but I believe you can. But you do need to save like the XMP files before you do the cull, because anything. So if you've got them in Lightroom and you've given them star ratings or color ratings, and you cull them in AfterShoot and then put them back into Lightroom, I believe it overrides them. So
Well,
if
there was a button to not override that. But then the other question is, so in Lightroom, since I'm not a Lightroom user, I'm like I said, I'm a Bridge and
yeah.
Photoshop user. Um, if the files have been exported to Lightroom, Bruce asks, can they then delete the XMP files?
Um, I'm going to turn around and say that's above my pay grade too. I'm not 100% sure because I haven't actually tried it. I'm thinking that might be a really good one for the folks at AfterShoot to answer on that one.
Okay, thanks, Bruce. Yeah,
Um,
he's gonna poke around online. There's
yeah,
the
yeah,
Facebook group is real good.
I haven't done it. Jerry asked if you can export back to Mac Photos library. I'm not a Mac user, so again, I'm sorry, Jerry, I can't answer that. You don't use
Jerry,
Mac either, do you?
if there's folders in there, I don't use photos myself, but if there's folders in there and you can navigate to a place in there, then yes, you can put a folder in there and you can export right into there into a folder. And I'm not sure exactly how photos work. That's below my pay grade. I use Photoshop and Bridge. So that's my main squeeze for working with images.
Yeah. Fran asked, I have a color star system in Lightroom. If I understand you correctly, I can import into Lightroom without AfterShoot color system overriding what I already have. So if you're importing directly from AfterShoot into Lightroom for the first time, it brings the color and rating over with you. So it will appear in, so if you've got 5-star and green as your number one picks, it will be rated as a green with 5 stars in Lightroom. If you are re-importing it after you've already been in Lightroom and reculling it again, that goes back to the question I guess before. Not really sure whether, I believe it would override it, but you'd have to check. I'm not really 100% sure on that myself. What else have we got?
Yeah,
Um,
thanks, Dave. He's saying pretty sure you would have to import into photos from a folder, but that's what I said. I
okay,
think you
yeah,
would have to go to a folder first, and then however photos absorbs those images, you would have to do it from there.
yeah. Okay, so Alan asks, when you've got several images that have been selected and want to limit it to only just the best one, then yeah, you can definitely come in and you can change the star rating. So, for instance, here I've got 3 images that are sort of, well, I've got more than 3, but they're all sort of similar. I probably should have done a stricter cull, and I think that this one's not necessarily brilliant. I'm just going to change that by pressing 3 on my keyboard, and that's changed it to a 3. So I think that maybe this one's probably better than this one. So again, I can change that to a 3 or a 2 or a 1. You can change it to whatever you want. When you change the number, it will change the color depending on what you had your star ratings for. And then you just click Save Changes, and it will change that and keep those selections for you. So that's another one. Now there was some other questions. So what is your workflow? Andy asks. Camera card import. Okay, so I get Bob and I work slightly different, so we'll go through that. What I do is I take my images off my SD card and I put them on the folder in my computer where I'm going to store them. I will then import them from my folder into AfterShoot, and then I let it run through, do a cull and do everything going through that way. I will then, once I've finished with my cull and I'm happy with it, I can then just export, and I can export it to Lightroom Classic or Capture One, or you can export it to a folder or whatever. But yeah, it just depends on which way you want to go. But maybe, Bob, if you can run through how your workflow goes.
Mine goes straight into a folder. I always go into a folder and name my folders first, and then I'll navigate from after shoot into the folder and pull it into there. I just, for some reason, and maybe this is old dogs and new tricks. I know that the software you can import direct from there and do your culling before you even get there. Which, if you were in the case, if I was back to doing weddings again, I think I would do it that way. I would just bring everything in and I would do the cull first, so I didn't have to look at them several times. I would let the software bang through it first. But since I don't do that kind of work and I'm still training up the software and seeing how it feels, I'm always going to put a folder together and then go from there.
Yep.
Oh, and we did get an answer from the world that it does override the settings in Lightroom as far as coming back the other way. Now, the
Okay.
way
Did
you
you
might,
save? Did Yeah, Fran? Did you save your XMP data before you did that?
and then the other thing you could do is you could actually do them as a second folder in there until you were sure what you wanted to do.
That's a good point.
That's something that I do.
Um, yeah, good question, Sharon. Can you delete your dodgy photos directly from your drive using your shoot? You can. So you can delete them from AfterShoot. Let's just have a go at this one. and it does ask you if you want to delete just from AfterShoot or if you want to delete from the disk. So if you've got a whole heap of dodgy photos and you just want to get rid of them, then you can just delete directly from the disk and it's gone.
And you can select multiples at the same time, just like you
Of
do
course,
with,
yeah.
or
And
just
then,
like you do in a regular file system.
yeah, you've also got built-in tutorials that are here as well. So if you come up the top, you've got a lot of different ones that you can go through. There's some videos on how to do stuff and just some different questions and things like that as well. There's some different articles and it comes up with what's new. So I'm hopefully I'm on the latest version at the moment, but it'll tell you what's been fixed and what changes have been made and all the rest of it in there too. So yeah, so that's really helpful when you're doing when you're just getting used to it and finding your feet and moving your way around. But yeah, anything setting your stars and colors, setting up your preferences so you can change your list if you have a particular workflow and it's something that you're already used to working with, then I mean it's really easy to just change that to what you're used to.
Okay,
Um,
Fran's asking how to figure out to best use the AfterShoot in Lightroom so that you can actually do the images. Well, you do your culling in AfterShoot, and while you're playing around in there, I'm going to crash your screen. I'm going to go share my
yeah, go
screen
for it.
over top of you.
Go
I'm
for it.
coming over. It says, "Hey, I'm going to go over top of her." Yes, I am. There we go. But when you go in there and you as you're working with it, you can kind of decide which way you want to go and get your culling done. And then as you work through your images, for example, on here, this was a live stage shoot. So on the live stage shoot, it went through and it out of 230 photos. Now, when you're doing live shoots, I do these to create artwork, so I extract people out of them and do things. So I'm looking for the sharp people and stuff. It selected 73, which I thought was a pretty good job. But if you look here, it did 10 right there. Where's my little, get over there. Let's go. So if we click on that, then we can go look over here and get the actual look on his face real quick, and you could say, okay, yeah, that's not the one. That's the one I want for whatever reason. And again, you get a quick look at the face, which is always really nice for the things that you're working on. So if you when you're navigating around, if you click on an image that has a lot, then you can just go back. If you want to get back to all your folders, you would go back to home. So looking down here, let's see what the sneak peeks was, because that's always interesting to me. Did it tell the story of that entire stage show? And I think it did a great job. It's got, that's totally different. That's totally different with nice. We got good expressions on both their faces. So these would be so maybe that one, not so much because the microphone hit him in the head. Um, when you get covered up with a microphone, that's better, like the
That's better.
expression. And there's him at the piano. So it gave me the story of the thing that I could put out on social media really quick with just a quick little pop. But we could go back in here and say yes, no, and poke around. So back to the entire call, and then back to the to selected. So being able to get around and look at all your images really quick and say yay, nay, with all the shortcuts and change it, that's pure number keys. Once you get those shortcuts down, going through your stuff is so much faster. It's pretty incredible stuff.
So just a couple of other things that have just come up in the Q&A. So how does it deal with bracketing exposures? And that's kind of an interesting question. It works, but it sort of doesn't at the same time. So it will put in a folder if you've got bracketed exposures. It will put them in the same folder, but it may give them different ratings. So what you would have to do is you would just have to double check, and because it's in the same folder, it's quick and easy to do. But if you're taking them into another program to merge them together to do your HDR, you could just give them all, a 5 or whatever, and then export them to Lightroom or Capture One or into a folder, and you could just merge them all that way. So it doesn't actually necessarily say, oh, these are bracketed images and give them all a 5 star. But it may give you the best one out of the bunch, and then you can just sort of work around it that way. But
So
because it will group them together, it's yeah, it's pretty
I
easy
was
to
I was
find them.
looking over here in the Q&A, and apparently Sharon Walker does not like this
Uh,
software at all. Oh wait, it's giving me back
oh,
so many hours, and I've
you've
only been using
frozen
it
on
for
us,
a
Bob.
few days. She's already got over 60,000 photos in Lightroom and many similars, and she's just starting to play with the AfterShoot. So
Oh,
she
you've
really
frozen on.
apparently
No,
is.
I'm frozen now.
You're
Oh, it keeps
frozen?
freezing. Um, Sharon, she's yeah, has given me back so many hours, and she's only been using it for a few days. If I can tell a story, Sharon, what was it? You imported 4,500 photos, and it culled them in 34 minutes. Is that the one? Yeah, so that's amazing. It's really interesting actually. It comes up and it tells you how many hours or minutes or whatever you've saved. So it's been yeah, it can save a lot of time doing it this way. What else?
Oh, so Fran's
Fran,
trying to
I'm trying
you're
to
trying to
figure out
figure
how
out
to
how to
best
use the ones.
use AfterShoot and Lightroom so that I can actually find the images that are best for further processing. Um, yeah, there was something I read and heard about if you are saving, so you've already got them in Lightroom and you need to save the sidecar files in Lightroom. Um, I'm just trying to think what that was. Because I haven't done it that way myself, I don't want to
Well,
go and
well,
answer
Fran,
you.
the question is, have you already um, gone ahead and have you done a bunch of stars and numbers or anything like that? Um, you can go over and actually the work that I've done on Photoshop and some of the files that I've got from my raw files, if I've done things, it's showing up in there. So yeah, the sidecar files are going with, but if you don't check that little box in there, I believe you'll be overwriting the information that you've already done. So to me, you should get to your folders and you know yeah, I'm just trying to figure that out. See, I'm again not being a Lightroom user. Excuse me, that's a tough one.
Yeah, and I must admit I haven't tried re-importing anything over, so maybe that's something that we can get the good guys at AfterShoot to cover off in another tutorial, or I'm just wondering if there's actually something in the AfterShoot tutorial as it is.
And
No.
we should actually that's the last question. So you're good there, and we're coming up on a couple of minutes left to go. I just definitely want to say thank you everybody for coming to hang out with us and play with AfterShoot. It's actually pretty darn cool. I'm excited about what it's doing, and even just going back in, it'll show me my Photoshop files as well, which I was surprised. When I'm working, if I go deep and have my worked files in there as well. So
And don't forget that I'm just going to put that up on the screen again there. So don't forget that
the
code where to go, there it is. So that AfterShoot code there for Photo Focus 10. So you
and our
can
unicorns are working. It's in the chat again.
in the chat again. So
There's the link as well.
yep. So yeah, but it's certainly made a huge difference to the way that I work, and I've been loving using every minute of it. So, and not just for people. So, and the more you use it, the more it adapts to how you use as well. So, um, you know, just putting in the birds, and I don't know what happened to my cake photos. I must have moved the folder. You can relink them if you do move folders. That was something else that I found. It was pretty easy to just, if you do happen to move the photos that are in that folder for whatever reason, and you want to go and recull, you can easily go and put that in as well.
Try
So
it on
yeah,
softball. I can see you will. Hey guys, it's 5 o'clock. Thanks so much for coming to the webinar. And yes, this will be available afterwards. Do we have a place where they can go find it? I know we've got one. I'm gonna wait and see if our magic unicorn can tell us where it'll be.
I'm sure it'll pop up
Em,
in a second. Oh,
any, You are welcome. Thanks. There it is. Community.photofocus.com to get all the webinar replays, not just this, but the one Rich did last month. Was a totally different feel because we all three of us work totally different. So it was pretty cool.
and I'm pretty sure Rich mentioned something about re-importing something into Lightroom.
He
So
did.
go and check out that recording that was there from the last webinar that Rich did. And I'm positive he actually mentioned about importing stuff back into Lightroom once it's been through. So maybe, Fran, that might answer your questions. But yeah, thank you everybody for coming along. Thanks, Bob, for joining me today. And
And
thanks
vice
our
versa.
magical unicorn for popping stuff up in our chat as well. Yeah, and we'll see you guys, yeah, online.
Have a great one.